Opposition to these services, and not in opposition to the job that Jenny O'Leary has done, which is a terrific job and provided a tremendous service to the youth of North Reading. I stand here opposed to it because we can't afford it. We cannot afford it. The board got a presentation last week about our current status of our budget and the contingencies and where we are, where we stand in relation to our current year budget. What was presented to us by the town administrator was a list of unfunded exposures and then budget adjustments necessary to the current fiscal year budget in order to try and bring things into balance. What was presented to the board was an unfunded exposure of $171,000. So there was all the unfunded exposures that we have, including this position, and then all of the increased revenue that we anticipate, left $171,000 for the board. The town about the current fiscal year. The governor proposed last week not to cut local aid. That was a wonderful piece of news. If that comes to fruition, it requires legislative action, 9C cut powers granted to the governor by the legislature, which is not guaranteed. That would leave us with a little bit of a surplus of about $44,000. Because we were anticipating $200,000 worth of cuts, $215,000 worth of cuts. If the governor gets his way, we won't get that, and I hope we don't. So it leaves us with a very scant surplus if the governor's proposal is approved, which is not guaranteed. So why are we here? 3 years ago, the Middlesex group presented an article to town meeting to create this position, and the Youth Services Committee prevailed. At that time, some of us warned that this is a wonderful program and a great idea and a wonderful concept and something that we would like to see happen. However, did not believe it was sustainable. The management funded for 2 years, which they've met, in hopes that the town could afford to pick up the salary and the benefits going forward. Things have gotten worse, not better. I don't like standing here proposing that we don't fund this position, because it's a wonderful thing. But by the same token, we've looked at, well, this was brought to us over the summertime, to the finance planning team, which is the chairs and vice chairs of the school committee, board of selectmen, finance committee, and said, hey, how about if we, within our current operating budget, both sides, general government and school government, kick in, see if we can fund this through the rest of the year and get it through. We couldn't come up with the money then. School department couldn't come up with $20,000. General government couldn't come up with $20,000 in our current year budget to fund this. How have we gotten by with this little scant surplus of $43,000? Again, the governor's proposal bailed us out a little bit here. But it's the local employees right now, general government and the school department, that have funded and closed the gap for us. They've taken 0 pay raises, no step increases. School department has postponed their pay increases the teachers have, along with the paraprofessionals. We currently have vacancies in the police department, IT department, school department doesn't have librarians, paraprofessionals, or teachers that we need. We heard from Mr. Jerby, and nobody knows better than he does, along with the current members of the school committee. We are significantly understaffed within the school department to meet the needs of our student population right now. And yet we're creating another position here, funding another position with resources that we don't have and can't sustain. It appears as though it's going to pass tonight. And again, I'm not going to be disappointed if it does. But I would feel as though I would be negligent if I didn't stand before you and say, I still don't see this as being sustainable right now. I don't know where we're going to get the funding come next July 1st when the new budget comes into effect. Where are we going to get it? School department can't afford to give anything up. We're underfunding our public safety department right now. We can't afford to give that up. Recreation has a revolving fund and runs a wonderful program over here, but are they willing to give up their resources in order to fund this position? It's something we have to look at. So it's a wonderful program. It's a terrific thing that we're doing. We have resources available to our students, and this is an ancillary one, which is a good one. We're meeting the needs of our student population and our youth. Can we do it better? Yes. Can we do a better job for our seniors? Yes. Can we do a better job for our veterans? Yes. Can we do a better job for our school department and our school children right now? Absolutely, yes. But can we afford to do it? The government program on few months ago, I was really tempted. I had a 1996 Ford Explorer with 185,000 miles on it that was worth $4,500 under that clunker program. And the car isn't worth $1,200. And I had to put $700 into it. I had a choice. Put $700 into it to keep it running so it can pass inspection. Or go for the cash for clunker program, where they're going to give you $4,500 for a car that isn't worth that much. I looked at it. I considered it. But you know what? It wasn't sustainable within my own home budget. Because in order for me to do that, I had to finance the future. I had to take out probably a 4 or 5 year loan and have a monthly payment. It was a great deal. It was a good idea. I couldn't afford it. So I put the $700 into the clunker. I'm still driving it. It's got 87,000 miles on it. And I'm still driving it. So I invested $700 here instead of the 5 months or 5 years of payments, that I couldn't afford. So we have choices to make. And these are difficult choices, and it hasn't been pleasant, to stand here in opposition and sit at the meetings in opposition to this program. I mean, I had lifelong friends and people who were shutting me and turning away. And that's part of the job that you get when you sit up here. And again, I could not and cannot allow this evening to go by to say again what I said 3 years ago. It's a wonderful program. It's a great idea. It's a wonderful thing that we've been able to do. But I'm not so sure it's sustainable. So we'll vote it through tonight. And again, I won't be disappointed, as I wasn't disappointed 3 years ago. But I didn't think it was responsible to do it. I think it's unfortunate that Jenny's in this position now. I think it's unfortunate that these youth who've done a terrific job of lobbying people like me are going to be congratulated for your efforts. Again, thank you for the opportunity. And just as an aside, I was a little disappointed that you didn't allow someone else to speak with an opposing point of view for an extra 15 minutes.
I ruled the move to the question out of order, but I will not recognize those who weren't standing before. There were 2 other people who were standing. Mr. Delaney, you can have the floor, and then the other 2 people that were standing.
Mr. Moderator, are you the moderator or is the Board of Selectmen moderator? Because you moved to the question, you then checked with the Board of Selectmen to see, well, I can't people speak. But we want to support this bill, and you let the Board of Selectmen dictate the meeting. Mr. Buell, it was clear that it was a no vote when he was asked to speak. It was then moved to the question, and you checked with them. Were you the moderator or they?
I am the moderator.
Okay. So why
excuse me. When Mr. O'Leary raised the point that we hadn't heard from the opposition, I sought individuals opposing the motion to speak.
Well, they raised more points, so why can't we answer that?
We can. But before we do that, I'm going to allow those who are standing before to speak, because I ruled move to the question out of order. So Mr. Delaney was seeking recognition before the move to the question, so I will allow Mr. Delaney to speak. There was another individual seeking recognition prior to the move to the question, so I would take that person next, and then I will go in order. And when I see no one else seeking recognition, we'll move to the question without having to vote to move to the question. But yes, I decide that Mr. O'Leary raised a valid point, that the opposition had not been heard. Mr. Delaney, you have the floor.
Mr. Moderator, I begin my comments this evening by first wishing to applaud Marissa for their efforts over the last 2 years, or 2 years plus, in fulfilling their commitment to this community in bringing forward the Youth Services Department and Jimmy O'Leary. It's greatly appreciated. This whole community should applaud you. I ask everyone in this room this evening to join me in voting in favor of this article. It's quite clear that Youth Services Department Jenny O'Leary fills a void that is in this community that's not satisfied by Parks and Recreation, it's not satisfied by any of the youth sports program. It's an ancillary part of the school department, and it's also an ancillary part of the police department. Many of you may not know what I do on a daily basis, and many of you may not like what I do unless you need me. I am for the most part, a criminal defense attorney. So, in most days during the workday, you find me in a juvenile court, in a district court, or in a superior court, defending someone who's been accused of some crime at some level. In the juvenile court, you see on a daily basis those youths from this community and other communities who may have strayed off the straight path that we as parents wish and hope our kids never go down. And it may be brought on by experimenting with alcohol, or maybe experimenting with drugs. And I, as part of what I do on that basis, is try to steer that child in the correct path and help that child. That's what IC Youth Services in Jenny O'Leary do. Some child that may have strayed off the path that we as parents hope them and expect them to go down. And maybe we can divert them back to the right track. And then you see the adults that I represent who started, as a speaker earlier had addressed, 30, 35, 40 years old, who started to experiment with drugs or alcohol, may have some mental health issues. But because there wasn't a Jenny O'Leary, because there wasn't a youth service program in their particular community, unfortunately they didn't get the help or attention they needed. And in my opinion, mental health, alcohol abuse, drug abuse does not discriminate. These children that are dealing with these issues may come from a home with two parents. They may come from a home with one parent. They may be raised by a different family member other than a parent. They may be rich, they may be poor. It comes from all walks of life. Trust me, I see it on a daily basis. So, I ask you, as you vote on this article this evening, I ask yourself to consider this. Do you wish to be the no vote that dismantles this program in our community when it's in its infancy? 2 years Jenny O'Leary has been in this position in youth services, has been part of this community. And yes, she is an employee of this community. Although her position has been funded by philanthropic efforts, people that have given their blood, sweat, and tears over the last 2+ years to make sure the youth in this community is serviced in a way other organizations cannot and do not service the youth of this community. Do you wish to be a part of that no vote that dismantles that particular program? Or do you wish to be a yes vote that votes in favor, as I will be doing, in support of this article? I ask you to vote in favor of it. I have heard that you can't really quantify what youth services of Jenny O'Leary does. I suggest to you, you can't. How can you? With the life of one child. That's how you quantify it. We, as a community, cannot afford not to fund this position. And we, as the leadership in the front here of this community, need to put our heads together and find a way to support this position after this fiscal year and going forward. So once again, I ask you to support this article and vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Sir, behind you. Ma'am.
Hi, Sheila Sweater, 5 Grand Street.